Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another Embassy Insider. Today is obviously a very special day, not just because of the food, but today I'm joined by a colleague who is a proud Filipino-American. I'm sure you have seen our Proud Philam campaign on Facebook and on Twitter. I hope you've been following it to learn the stories of the inspiring and notable Filipino-Americans. This afternoon, I'm joined by a friend and colleague, a Filipino-American diplomat who's assigned here to the U.S. Embassy in the Philippines. Josie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Molly, for inviting me.
Yeah, well, and it's a wonderful excuse for me to learn a little bit about the Philippines. I haven't been here, it's been a year, so there's a lot for me left to learn. I'm really excited to hear about your life, hear about your favorite foods, and a little bit about your heritage. But first, should we try some of the food?
Yes, please.
Wonderful.
So I heard that you've never tried this one before.
I
So maybe I
haven't.
should explain to you what it
Yeah.
is. So this is bibingka. Bibingka is a Filipino rice cake. It's made of rice flour and either coconut milk or water. And the traditional kind is cooked in banana leaves on hot coals.
I see. It looks a little actually toasty around the outside, and it does look like it's in a banana leaf. Is it salty or is it sweet?
It's more sweet, as
Okay.
most Filipino desserts are. They're
It
they're
is
quite
merienda,
sweet.
yeah?
And this one here is ensaymada.
Mm.
Ensaymada, I believe, actually has Spanish roots.
Mm.
And I think the closest comparison is maybe the Western brioche, a very sweet, soft bread.
Yeah.
Except Filipinos, again, love everything sweet. So there's lots of butter and sugar.
Is that sugar? I was
And
going to say, is that sugar on top?
it
I
is
see
lots of sugar as well as sweet cheese on top, too.
sweet cheese. Interesting. And so did you grow up eating these delicacies?
I did, but usually on special occasions.
Mm.
So, one reason why this is so special is because bibingka in particular usually comes out around Christmas time. And so I know it's October, but in the Philippines, when it's September, we start celebrating and preparing for
Hmm.
Christmas. So, one of the reasons why these are some of my favorite foods is because it makes me think about preparations for a very special time of year for Filipinos.
That is absolutely lovely. It's funny because I was just in the store the other day and heard Christmas carols, and it wasn't Thanksgiving yet. It wasn't even Halloween yet. And I asked a friend, I said, why are there already Christmas carols? He said, well, it's the Burr months, of course.
That's right.
And so for me, it's an extended holiday season here, but it's a lot of
Yes,
fun.
it
It's very,
definitely
very
is.
festive.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you were a kid, was this part of your holiday preparation?
Definitely.
That's
Definitely.
amazing, isn't it? And it's amazing how strong food is to bring back memories and to have those connections.
Definitely.
Did you want to try
Sure, I'll
some?
try
I think
some.
this is
Yeah.
amazing. I
Yeah.
love the sweet and the salty
Mm-hmm.
combination. I think
Mm-hmm.
that the added sugar and butter might do a lot
This is
to
a
make it
good
go.
one. Thank you for preparing
Wow,
it.
baked all day. Could you tell us a little bit about your Filipino heritage?
Sure. So my grandfather on my father's side, he was a judge from the province of Mindoro. And my grandfather on my mother's side was a World War II veteran, and he was a doctor from the province of Pampanga. Both of my parents moved to the United States many decades ago, and I was born and raised in the US. But we've maintained our ties to both provinces. And I will say one very special experience that I had recently through my job right now with the US Agency for International Development, or USAID as we know it, was that I actually got to go back to both provinces in the context of being a US diplomat.
Wow.
And it was just very special to be able to go to my parents' hometowns and somehow have a small part in USAID's programs that serve some of the most vulnerable in these provinces.
That must have been really emotional and
It
exciting.
really
Do you
was,
still have
yes.
family in either of the provinces?
We have some family there, but since then, most of them have moved to Metro Manila.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so are you in touch with your family here in Metro Manila?
Definitely. Like most Filipinos, we have a big family, both on my side and on my husband's side. So we get together often and we always have lots of fun here.
That is really, really exciting. How did you sort of, if you were born in the US
Mhm.
and both your parents Filipinos by origin, but you were born and raised in the US and you went to school
Mhm.
with other kids from the US. How did you really get in touch with your Filipino heritage? What was it
Mhm.
that made you really connect?
That's a great question. So, actually, like many Filipino Americans who were born and raised in the US, I actually knew very little or almost no Tagalog. I grew up in a community that was had very few Filipinos, and I studied international relations. So I actually studied French, Japanese, and Russian. And my parents nor I, we never imagined that I would one day come back to the Philippines. So they never taught me Tagalog,
And you
unfortunately.
didn't speak at home.
I didn't
Nobody
speak
spoke
it at
Tagalog at
home.
home.
I didn't even understand it actually. But after I graduated, I first volunteered and then I worked with a local nonprofit organization here in the Philippines. And I learned out of necessity because I was in the province. I lived with a number of different host families who spoke limited English.
Wow.
So I learned really out of necessity. I also married a Filipino, so that helped a lot to get in touch with the language and the culture.
Mm. I learned Spanish because my mother-in-law doesn't speak English, and I had to
Ah,
learn Spanish
okay.
to communicate with my mother-in-law. I'm not sure if
Mhm.
that's your situation, but that
It
was
definitely helps.
yeah, definitely. That's really
Yes.
interesting.
Yes.
And so you came here with the work with an NGO, but
Mhm.
what made you interested in becoming a diplomat?
Mhm. So I grew up in California.
Hmm.
And one of the reasons why I loved my hometown in California, other than the beautiful beaches
Sure.
in South Orange County,
Hmm.
was that it was such a multicultural neighborhood.
Hmm.
And my friends were from all over of different ethnicities, religions, socioeconomic classes. And I learned really from a young age to not just accept these differences, but really embrace them and
Hmm.
celebrate them. So I got very involved in our school's multicultural club. I was the secretary general of our Model United Nations
Yay!
program.
Hmm.
And I think that was when I really started to develop this interest in international relations
Sure.
and becoming a diplomat one day. After I finished school, then I started working for a number of international nonprofit organizations, particularly focused on low income families, refugees, and
Hmm.
informal settlers. And after a number of years of doing that, I felt that it was time to take the next step. And joining the Foreign Service was really, for me, a step of faith as I desire to expand my influence through work to help those most in need.
Wow, that's an amazing story. And when you became a diplomat, what were your first postings? Where were you
Mhm,
first assigned before coming here?
mhm. So after my training in Washington, D.C., then I was first assigned as the Regional Monitoring Evaluation Advisor based in USAID's Regional Asia Mission in Bangkok, Thailand. And from there, I had the privilege of helping to open the new mission in Burma and
Mm.
also support the mission in Cambodia and China. After that, then I was posted in Ethiopia, and
Mhm.
there I worked mostly on USAID's health programs, combating preventable maternal and child deaths, HIV and AIDS, and malaria.
Wow, fascinating. Real
Yeah.
diversity of areas that you've worked in.
Yes, it's really been a privilege.
And so you were in Ethiopia when you found out you were coming to the Philippines?
Actually, no. I did a short mid-tour rotation
Hmm.
between Ethiopia and then first went to
Hmm.
Washington D.C. And then the Philippines.
And so when you found out that Manila would be your next assignment, how did that make you feel?
Well, for a while I was in disbelief, actually, but I've definitely felt so honored and so excited too. So my husband and I, we left the Philippines more than 10 years ago. And when we left 10 years ago, honestly, we were really sad. And we didn't know when we were going to return
Right.
to the Philippines again. My husband had just gotten a visa to the US,
Hmm.
and we had to return there for family reasons. And we at the time would have never, ever imagined that we would come back as US
Right.
diplomats.
Right.
But it has just been such an honor to be able to come back and work with USAID, where we have this mission of combating global poverty. We also have two small kids, as you know, and it's been great to be able to raise them here since
Right.
they've grown up all over the world. Now they can be back in touch
Mhm.
with their roots and get to know a little bit more about the Filipino culture.
Isn't that amazing? What a
Yes.
wonderful full circle. And so in your current job, what is it that you enjoy most apart from
Mm.
being here in the Philippines?
Mhm, mhm. So I sincerely have always made it my life goal to use my skills and talents to serve others. And I believe that if we've been given opportunities, whether it's a great education or an influential position, it really is to be able to share those opportunities with others. So I love being able to go out to the field, for example, with USAID's programs. Sometimes it's interacting with out of school youth and children
Mhm.
and mothers and farmers. And it's just been such a special experience to be able to do that.
That's neat. That's the desire to serve is very, very strong. And
Definitely.
how do you think that your Filipino heritage has affected the work that you're doing now?
Mhm. So definitely there are a lot of benefits to being Filipino American in the workplace. My boss often says that I'm the bridge in the office because I'm the one who
Oh,
often understands and can communicate across both cultures. Again,
sure.
I love being able to go out to the field and
Hmm.
to be able to hear people in their own language and to speak directly to them as well.
And so your Tagalog has come a long ways.
I hope so. I think so. But I will say, Molly, that it is often a very interesting experience because people are often surprised when I show up as the US government
Oh,
representative
really?
because they, and fair enough, are often expecting someone of, shall I say, a different color
Sure.
or height. But actually, for me as an American, I think it's actually such a great message to bring that
Hmm.
Americans are not just of one color
Hmm.
or one religion, but we come with these shared values of freedom and
Yeah.
democracy and our people to people ties.
Yeah. That's got to be interesting, though, to have those conversations, especially perhaps with a farmer or somebody
Yes.
who really hasn't had international experience to come and say, no,
Mm-hmm.
actually, yes, I am a Filipino heritage,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
that must be
Exactly.
fascinating.
Yes. It's a lot of fun.
And so tell me what the theme that we've been doing on our Facebook and Twitter
Mm-hmm.
account
Mm-hmm.
is Proud Phil Am. Can you
Mm-hmm.
tell me what makes you feel proud of being a Filipino American?
Mm-hmm. So being Filipino American, it will always be intrinsically
Sure.
part of who I am as a person. But actually, I am just proud to be a public servant and proud to be in a position where I can, even in small ways,
Hmm.
positively influence people's lives. So I'm just so grateful that through my experiences, through my background, I've been able to develop values that I think are kind of the best of both cultures, such as family and hard work and inclusiveness, and of course, also foundation and faith.
That's really, really wonderful. Josie, thank you so much for chatting. I feel like I've taken all your time. You haven't had a chance to eat anything yet, so we should perhaps enjoy our merienda.
Yes, yes,
Everybody,
please.
thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for following our Proud Phil Am campaign on Twitter and in Facebook. Send us your thoughts. We'd love to hear from you, and we look forward to you joining us again next month for another Embassy Insider. I'm Molly Koscina. Thanks again for joining us. And Josie, thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you,
Thank
Molly.
you. Bye.